Hello, this is Craig Mertens, Director of Product Education for Inktavo, the parent company of InkSoft, Inktavo, Graphics Flow, Sign Tracker, and Clarity. Welcome to the webinar today. This is the second part of our Mastering E-commerce series. So what we wanted to do is do a top to bottom series, 6 classes, taking you through the business of e-commerce. And although you might be an InkSoft user, anyone that is involved in e-commerce is going to be benefiting from this. So we tried to make the class inclusive. So it's generally about e-commerce. Obviously, the tools that we'll be using in the class will be InkSoft. We're here to train people on how to be successful in the world of selling online. What do we call this thing of selling online? Do we call it online stores? I think if you call it online stores, folks that are generally within the industry kind of know what that is. Or do you call it e-commerce? And I think e-commerce kind of generally describes just general selling online, like probably like what Amazon does. But online stores describes creating stores for your customers and making it easy for them to buy from you. So it'd be individual stores where you're selling merch, maybe doing a revenue sharing program. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is creating engaging and successful online stores. So with that being said, I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get right into it. So the name of the class is InkSoft Academy Mastering E-commerce Series, Module 2 of 6, Creating Engaging and Successful Online Stores. We're going to talk about the different store types, best practices for building online stores, how to structure revenue sharing models. I'm really excited to talk about that. I've done a ton of research on that, talked to lots of customers, see how to leverage ordering portals, and so you'll see what that is, and then discover layout, product, and pricing strategy, and then pick up some tips along the way. First thing I want to talk about is online store types. Bear in mind, there's other types of stores that are kind of hyper specific, but I want to talk about the general type of stores that we see within the apparel decoration space that people are hosting. And obviously, very common one is team stores. These are your spirit wear stores, also stores where you're collecting all the data for uniforms, doing uniform bundles. Typically, a team store is going to open. It's going to be open for a period of time, and then it's going to close, and it's going to relaunch, each season. And in some cases, they stay open year round because there's an evergreen store, and we're just establishing that store to support the team or group or organization. And I would also lump any activity that goes on around a school as in that team store category. So that would be things like orchestra or drama or all the other types of activities and organizations that happen around schools. Corporate stores are where employees are going to go to get uniforms, where fans of the store are going to go to buy merch to support the organization, whether it's a retail brand or it's a company or it's a coffee shop or a brew pub. One of the things that's really important is giving the HR department the ability to reorder. When you're ordering uniforms for a big organization, it's a pretty big load on the HR department to coordinate all that. And imagine being able to send your employees to a store. They have a coupon budget. They can go to the store, pick out their uniforms right size, their little kit, and be done with it. And as HR manager, you're not having to handle all the nitty gritty, so to speak, of getting uniforms on people. So corporate store is a very popular one. Fundraising store is going to be a store that's designed to raise funds for a group or organization. Those stores are typically going to be temporary. A lot of times it's around nonprofit, schools, community causes, and then customer portals. So what is a customer portal? That's a place for your customers to go to reorder, see past orders. And I think the best way to explain that, that's what Amazon does. Before you create a store, typically what you have to decide on is how you're going to price, how you're going to sell. And there's basically 2 ideas. One is revenue sharing, where you're setting a retail price and you're paying out to the person you're hosting the store for a percentage of the revenue. That's option 1. And then option 2 is bulk ordering, which is what we're doing every day in our shops. Customer comes in, hey, I need 48 t-shirts and 72 Richardson 112 hats. I just want to place an order. Give me a price. I'll place the order. I'll pay you. There's a huge advantage to revenue sharing, especially when it comes to doing online stores. And that advantage is you're selling off a retail price. You're giving the customer a percentage, and they can't line you up with wholesale prices from other vendors. It's not like they're going to be able to come to you and say, hey, I can get that same shirt for $650. You're not taking any of the risk. I'm going to host a store for you. We're going to sell that shirt for $25, and I'm going to give you 25%, and you're not going to have to stock any inventory. You don't have to worry about anything. We're going to handle everything. And then at the end of the month, we're just going to write you a check. And so the real trend in our industry, and this has been going on for quite some time, has been a shift towards revenue sharing with online stores. And that's a lot easier because if you think about it, if you do bulk ordering with an online store, then you have to collate all the orders together. You got to figure out what you're going to charge the person by line item and what the individual costs are. You got to calculate that, and then you got to invoice them at the end versus just run a report. We're going to pay you 25% of everything that went through the store. Revenue sharing models. So let's talk about the kind of different models that people use. Fixed amount per item. So if you're doing something really simple, let's say it's a shirt and a hat and a crew neck, and you just wanted to set a flat dollar amount that's, hey, $5 from this, each transaction from each shirt is going to go towards the group. That's a pretty easy way to manage it. And I think most customers can kind of wrap their brain around that. Now, there's an advantage to you if you're selling higher cost goods. So if you're selling a $50 crew neck and you're only having to give out $5 versus $5 on a $20 t-shirt, that's a good deal for you. I think a lot of customers can see through that. And so that is a question that could come up during the conversation. You have to be prepared to answer that. One of the things that you can do is you can give choices in the form of a menu to your customers. Say, hey, we have two programs. One program is, hey, we pay you a fixed amount per item. And the other program is we pay you a percentage of gross. Unfortunately, on the percentage of the gross program, because I'm taking a higher level of risk, we have to charge you a store fee in order to do that. But you guys get to choose. I'm a big fan of keeping it simple. And what I would probably advise is presenting a single option for revenue share instead of giving customers decision making on that. I would do a percentage of gross would be the way that I would typically want to position this. Some of the pros, simple to explain, easy to track, and it's very predictable. You know exactly what you're going to pay out on each item. Doesn't adjust with pricing changes or profit margins. So, if you do get a price change, you're going to be absorbing that if your cost goes up $1. A couple tips around that. You can use price averaging across products to balance the margins. So, instead of doing $5 and across the whole thing, maybe the hoodies would be more like 10 and the t-shirts would be like 5. And so you do a fixed amount of $7.50 per item. So that's one. Always add a cushion. You're going to have some lower margin products that are going to be in there, and you try to select the product mix to your benefit. So you have to do a little bit of steering with the customer, but that's the fixed amount per item model. Percentage of net profit. On the surface, this seems like the way to go, but there's some complexities that go along with this as well, which is the customer really trusts you to be completely transparent around the price. And if you're paying them a percentage of net profit, they know what your costs are, and that can be very uncomfortable. I'm not a huge fan of this pricing model. I know some people do it, and in some cases it's standard, and oftentimes you'll have organizations that might ask you to do it this way, but it does, raise the kind of specter of visibility there, because if you're going to pay 20% of profit and they know your shirt's only $3, they're going to be like, hey, why can't I buy this for $4? In terms of the pros, it's a fair split based on the actual profitability. So in a sense, you're a partnership. You're protecting your margins as the decorator. Cons, it's definitely harder for the organizations to understand. You do have a less predictable payout. So you're not going to really know what your payout is truly until you do the final analysis on what the goods cost and versus what you sold. Trying to create that fluidity in visibility during the store's life is a little bit more challenging. But if you're going to do this, build a clear reporting so our organizations see exactly how the profits are calculated, which means you're going to have to put the costs in. And then you're definitely going to want to pad your margins. So, if the cost is materials and printing, it's $3, you probably want to charge $4 in terms of accounting for it, because you have other unforeseen costs. Like a good example of that is spoilage, right? You always have to factor that in as well. So pad your margins slightly on cost-sensitive products to keep the payouts consistent, which brings us to the third model, which is the keep it simple model, which is just give them a percentage of gross. You're going to determine the retail price, and that retail price is likely going to be determined by your cost. And you're going to have some products you're going to have higher margins in. You're going to have some products you have lower margins in. But let's say we set up a program and it was a percentage of profit. That percentage is going to be higher versus a percentage of total gross sales. So a percentage of profit might be, and we're going to give 25% of profit, but a percentage of gross sales might only be 15%. So you get to decide, and we're going to talk a little bit about tiers in terms of creating tiers for this model, but percentage of total sales revenue shared before costs are subtracted. So it's on the retail price. And that, of course, is going to exclude shipping. Easy to calculate. Attractive organizations, they can get their minds around the math pretty easy. It's based on total sales. It's going to give us some extra flexibility in terms of setting up tiers, which we're going to talk about. But it doesn't account for costs. So you do run the risk if you have lower retail prices on higher cost items. You need to make sure that you have a high enough retail price that you're still making your target margin on those. And a couple tips, adjust your pricing on your lower margin products, just like we talked about, to keep your profitability. And then use product mixes to balance high and low margin items. You got to put some things in your mix that are affordable for everyone. And so I'm a big fan of always having that value product. Maybe it's a $15 t-shirt. It's not a fancy t-shirt. Maybe it's like a Gildan, not a Bella Canvas or a Next Level or Cotton Heritage, but having an inexpensive t-shirt and then syncing that up with kind of a basic graphic, a good entry-level price point. Every kid gets to buy a shirt. It's affordable. But then you start stepping it up, and better graphic on a higher quality shirt, like a tri-blend or a heavier weight shirt that has a more impactful graphic, or maybe a different decoration process, maybe a patch or an applique, and then working your way up to some premium products. If you're in a situation where you can do print on demand, and then we'll just use the example of direct to film as well as embroidery. Embroidery, you can do one-offs. So you can put some heavy cotton products in there with high margins and high retail price. And if you don't sell a bunch of them, there's no liability to you. DTF, you can do the same thing, but you do have the cost of the transfers to accommodate for, and there are minimum order quantities. And the more transfers you order, the lower the price of the transfer. You could throw some transfers on the shelf, draw against those transfers, and then you can have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you put them on. And so that's how most folks are doing print on demand for direct to film. The people that have direct to film printers that are making their own transfers, it's a little trickier for them. If you're doing direct to film and you're on a roll fed printer, you got 12 feet of material coming out that printer before the first transfer comes out. And so what does that mean? It means you need to bulk produce your transfers on a cadence. So maybe produce your transfers once a week or twice a week. So you make sure that that printer is primed with film. And the other thing that people do is they'll pre-print transfers and put them on the shelf. So whether you're ordering transfers in and putting them on the shelf and drawing against that inventory, or printing them yourself and putting those transfers on the shelf, that's a really good way to do this percentage of gross sales model with a print on demand. Deciding on the revenue sharing percentages, I get this question all the time. And I poll customers on this, and the highest number I ever hear is 30%. If you math that out and your gross profit margin on the product is 40% and you're giving the customer 30%, you're not making a lot of money there. And so in order to accommodate that, you're going to have to raise your retail price. In this model here, you notice that my revenue share is higher at the higher retail price. I think it's pretty easy on a t-shirt to spell that out. $30 shirt, we're going to give you 30%. $25 shirt, we're going to give you 25%. $20 shirt, we're going to give you 20. And if you want that economy shirt, that $15, we're going to give you 15%. That's pretty easy math to convey to your customer. I think it's a really good example of what works in the real world. But I do talk to customers, and they charge a fee for the store, monthly fee for the store, and pay as little as 15%. I feel like that is probably going to be risky, because I feel like somebody else is going to come along and maybe offer them a bigger percentage. Not necessarily against charging a monthly fee to run the store, because we have a lot of customers that do that, and it basically pays for their entire e-commerce platform, becomes like a profit center for them. But if you're going to do that, make it affordable. $25 a month, $50 a month. And then also you can create a program where you rebate back that fee if they hit certain sales quotas during the month. Let's say they reach $1,000 and you're going to not charge them that. So that creates a built-in, incentive for them to really promote the store so you can get your numbers up. It makes sense. You got to protect those margins. Raising retail prices protects your margins, gives you a higher payout too. You're making more and they're making more at $30 at 30%. Higher dollar shirt, we're making more money. It's good for everyone. You know upfront what you're going to be making. You don't have to worry about getting to the end of the program and you have your store and you launch and you're like, oh, wow, we didn't make any money. You also have to factor in shipping costs. I'm not a fan of free shipping. I know folks are really huge fans of free shipping. I would say, if you're going to do quote free shipping, build it in, or just have flat rate shipping, but you shouldn't be giving shipping away on a store like this because it is a captive market. You don't have to. If you're doing all the merch for that organization, you should be able to charge shipping. We talked about this earlier, shifting the focus to retail pricing, not wholesale. That's huge because like they can't line you up. It's not like they can go, I could go on AliExpress and import these shirts for $450 with a one color print. They can't do that to you because you're setting the retail price. And so they can't line you up so much with competitors. In terms of payout schedule, monthly payouts, run a report at the end of the month and either issue a check or ACH transfer to the organization. You have to be cognizant of taxable liability. So every state is a little bit different. In some cases, you'll have to collect sales tax. In other cases, you don't. If you're donating a revenue share back to a group, that's a charitable organization. It could be considered a charitable donation. I'm not going to give you tax advice, but you need to do your research around the tax implications anytime you do a store for a nonprofit or charitable organization. Banner tracking in the store. That's an InkSoft feature. You can set up a banner in the store to showcase in real time how much money is being generated for the store. And there's 3 ways you can do it. You can do it percentage of profit. You can do it as a flat fee. There's not multiple flat fees. It's just one flat fee for the store. And then the other way you can do it is a percentage of gross. In order to do a percentage of gross, you have to go into the product and configure the costs. Tiered incentives. This is a huge one. You can talk to a group or an organization. You can say, hey, listen, if you guys get up to $5,000, I'll pay you an extra 10% from 5,000 to 10,000. So your revenue share at up to 5,000 is 20%, but at anything over from 5,001 on up, we're going to pay you 25%. And that's a really good way to get them to promote the store. The trick to being successful with online stores is getting the person you're hosting the store for to promote it, meaning their social media channels, meaning flyers, sending out an email and using a service like Constant Contact or MailChimp, being able to promote the store to their, end buyer is the key to doing it all. If people don't see the store, if they can't access the store because they don't know about the store, you're not going to move merch through it. And a lot of times I'll talk to people that are very down on e-commerce and I'll ask them why. And they say, well, we ran the store for the school and, it just didn't produce very much. I'm like, well, what did you do to help the school promote it? Did you write social media content for them? Because you can do that in ChatGPT and give them the pre-written scripts. Did you write the email for them? Did you check up with them on it to see that the email went out? Did you write an email drip email sequence for them that sends out periodic emails? Did you do a pre-sale? Did you do a post-sale? So it's all these things that you're doing to help them get visibility for their store is the difference. And setting up tiered incentives is a great way to motivate them to promote. Custom scheduling options allow flexibility for large events or seasonal campaigns, payout after the fundraising drive ends. The thing that you have to always be aware of when you're doing these event-related things is you can always run that pre-sale so you get some money for the event. It kind of primes the pump on your production because you're probably still going to do the production together for that, especially if you're delivering the products at the event. So you run a pre-sale, you do all the production, you show up at the event, you have a little bag with their receipt on it, they pick it up, they leave, and then you're also selling merch at the event. And if you have a print on demand, what you can do is you can run a post sale for all those folks that maybe didn't get to go to the event or just maybe the price was just a little bit too high. And you run a post sale and you take the $20 t-shirt and you run it for $15 and you're still making margin because you're doing a percentage. And you get a nice little boost of sales after the event. I think that should almost be an automatic. And that's using a marketing principle called scarcity, which is a very effective marketing principle for running online stores, especially this concept of pre and post sales. And then transparent reporting. You just have to be straight with people on the reporting, whether you send them a PDF or an email summary with just line items, or if you have a sophisticated tool where they can download something. That you just can't have at that awkward moment around the money stuff. It's just got to be very transparent, very clear, and timely. If you say you're going to pay out 30 days from the end of the event, you have to pay out 30 days and from the end of the event. And it'd be better to pay out even earlier, within 7 days of the event. That's the way I would advise doing it. You have to deal with returns or defective goods. So you have to have a very clear policy on reporting defective goods or shortages. And so that's why a lot of times people will have a little buffer between the end of the event payout and the actual event ending. Best practices, and we're going to dig into some stores here in a little bit. You have to be able to see this thing on a mobile phone. It's got to be mobile friendly. I've talked about this before. We get the stats through InkSoft on all the commerce that we have running through the platform, and roughly 80% of it is happening on a mobile device or, specifically a phone or a tablet, mostly on phones. So if your site doesn't look great on a phone, it's going to be hard for people to navigate. It will have an impact in terms of the success of your store. Organize products by category. Keep it nice and clean. When we dive into a store, I'll show you how I did it. You got to align with your production processes, meaning if it's a evergreen store and you're running it all the time and you're a screen printer and you only get 6 pieces for that particular design, and you have to set up to do 6 pieces, you're probably losing money on that. But let's say you have a stack of transfers that you pre-ordered that you're drawing against, your liability is pretty low. If you have a direct-to-garment printer or sublimation, you can do one-offs, and that would also be typically true of embroidery, although your cost on doing single head embroidery is going to be higher in terms of labor versus multi-head embroidery, like a 12 head. You just have to look at your fulfillment capacity. If you have big, sophisticated, automated screen printing equipment, say you have a Rock Auto and you're running that store for 3 weeks and you have 270 units, you're probably going to throw that on your auto. But it comes in and you've got 37 units, you might just order direct to film transfers. And I don't believe you have to disclose that anymore. I don't think you have to tell the customer what the end process is going to be. I think the direct to film transfers are of such high quality now that you're not going to see complaints from your customers. Now, with that being said, there is huge quality differences between the manufacturers of the transfers. So you definitely get what you pay for. The really inexpensive per square inch transfers, in my experience, are not as high a quality as the better transfers. Not all transfers are created equal. So you do have to make sure that you vet those transfers. And I think a lot of times it comes down to color values and hand. How does it feel when it's on the shirt? Does it feel like a Frisbee or does it feel like more like a screen print? Expand offerings strategically using print on demand or outsourcing production to broaden the mix. So you can always outsource production. So for instance, a good example of that is banners, or a better example of that would be school graduation signs. You don't have to produce those themselves. You could use like Signs 365 or 4over or Showdown Displays does that as well. And you're paying a wholesale price, drop shipping that right into the customer. And it's just another profit center for your store. Streamlining the ordering and production. Put your top sellers in there. Don't overwhelm the store with too many options. It causes confusion for the end consumer. It causes inefficiency in terms of production because you have all these different SKUs and you got to deal with the different colors and color changes. Keep it to the core product. 100% cotton tee, 100% cotton long sleeve tee. You get to choose if it's going to be a premium t-shirt or if it's going to be a basic. A crew neck 80-20, 80-20 hoodie. I mean, those are your starting 4, maybe a dry fit tee, dry fit hoodie. And then tier 2 is going to be your headwear, like a Richardson 112, a polo shirt, maybe a piqué left chest pocket embroidery, maybe stepping into a jacket or a zipper hoodie. You start getting into promo where you're talking about the hydration category, like your double steel wall insulated tumblers, but keep that product offering narrow. It's just easier on the production and it's less decision making from the consumers. And what's cool about a print on demand model is, guess what? You can mix it up. So if something's not moving, pull out a color, replace the color, and see if you get some action. Or you've got 3 colors that are going, only 2 of them are selling. No point in keeping the third one in there. Print on demand works really well with obviously embroidery, transfers. Patches are great for print on demand. You can literally set up a whole business around producing patches, whether it's patches on headwear or patches on fleece. And then decals, think about it, you have the same graphic, sell it as a decal, sell it as a patch. What's the difference between a sticker and a decal? A sticker is 25 cents, a decal is $8. They're the same thing. It's just a perceived value thing, right? So decals are like printing money. Tailor the graphics and the product colors to local teams or corporate identity. I'm going to show you a really good example of that in a store. So you can do corporate graphics and then you can tune them to the local sports team. You don't have to put the logo of the team there, but it's pretty obvious that you're supporting, if it's scarlet, gold, and white and you're in Kansas City, chances are, if it's your corporate branding with those colors, people are going to make the connection between that and the Kansas City Chiefs. And in Kansas City, it's kind of neat. My wife's from there. They do this thing on Fridays where everybody during football season wears their Chiefs colors. Maximize your store revenue. Pop-up stores, you can pop a store up for just a very short period of time for seasonal products. You want to do something for a special cause. Keep those graphics rotating in there, make them fresh and engaging. You can do things to boost corporate culture, like, providing gift cards or, sale events, or you can do things like buy one, get one free for Black Friday or holiday specials. But one of my favorite tips for promoting and being successful with your stores is you can go to Vistaprint or Canva and you can order a 3x5 postcard that just has a QR code on the back and some virtual samples of the product on the front. And you can flood the zone with 1,000 of those for $20. And the kids bring them to grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, sister. They stack them at the checkout of the local grocery store. And that QR code just goes right to that store and you're done. And that's an absolutely awesome idea for stores. If you don't have cool graphics in your stores aren't going to do well. That's just a fact. You got to have cool graphics in your store in order for them to do well. And probably the best way to make sure that you have cool graphics in your store is do a little research and see what the big brands are doing. Go to Fanatics, check out what Fanatics is doing. Hit some of the big box retailers. Go on the college bookstore websites and see what their merch is looking like. So you absolutely have to be tuned into graphics, and people want graphics that emulate what they're seeing in the marketplace. And so sometimes that's really simple graphics. Sometimes that's not complicated graphics, but it can't be tied to your taste. It has to be tied to what's actually moving in the marketplace. Populate your stores with customizable stock designs. That's graphics flow. You guys are going to see a little bit of that in a second, because with graphics flow, it's just super easy to create cool graphics for a store. It just doesn't take any time. Customer portals. We're going to dive into a portal. I'm going to take you through a store and kind of dive into a portal so you guys can see what that looks like. But that's just that place you can go to place a reorder. Is you can see if you're the administrator for an online store, like the school parent or the coach, you can go into your portal and you can see what's moving, what isn't, top sellers, things that are stinkers that you probably need to move along. If you're doing like a program with coupons or gift cards, that person that's the responsible party for the customer, the booster parent, they're going to be able to see if cards are getting used or if coupons are getting used. That's what a portal does. And, those can be for public or private ordering. You could have a portal that is password protected, that only employees can go in and buy their uniforms from. Or you can have just a regular public website with a login to the portal. In InkSoft, it's a little different because anybody that places an order through an InkSoft store has access to their portal, their customer account. But it's different when you create what's called a user account that gives that responsible party additional access. And so what you're seeing here on the screen right now is you're actually seeing a example of what the customer-facing dashboard looks like. If that end user who's the decision maker logs into their dashboard, they're able to see fundraising amounts and gift cards and top sellers and look at past graphics and all that. And then the other thing I can do is, if you enable the designer, and especially in an InkSoft store, they can upload their own graphics and put them on a product and get a quote and check out too. As far as the InkSoft customer portal, we'll just take a dive in there so you guys can see what it looks like. But gotta love those one-click reorders. Art approvals just make that super easy. And then also you're getting all those metrics. So people love that transparency of seeing like, how much have we made, to be able to go into their store and see kind of where they're at with their programs. That's really important as well. Optimizing the user experience. That store's got to be easy to navigate. It's got to be clean, simple to navigate. It has to look good and mobile. Very important. You got to have a real super easy checkout process. If you don't make that part really super obvious, you'll get drop-offs, and that's not good. In InkSoft, one of the things that you can do is if you have a drop-off, you can configure a sequence of abandoned cart emails where you can go in and say, hey, at day 1, day 3, and day 10, we're going to send out an email that says, hey, we noticed that you didn't finish checking out. Here's a coupon for 10% off. That's can be automatically configured by store in an InkSoft store. And then create compelling product presentation. You got to have good photos of the products. You have to have good product photos. I'm not a big fan of people in photos. I'm a big fan of flat photography, but it's whatever your preference is. Folks expect to see size charts. They see that on Amazon. They want clear descriptions of the products. They know exactly what they're ordering. In the InkSoft world, that's coming from the product feed, because we're getting that data directly from the suppliers through like the SNS feed, the SAMR feed. You also have the feeds for all your other vendors in InkSoft, including like Augusta Sportswear and people like that. And then trusted signals. What that means is when they go to checkout, they don't get any red flags like, oh, there's my secure payment options. Here's my store return policies, my deadline for my fundraiser. If you're going to run a ticker for a fundraiser countdown, end it 3 days before you need to, and then pop it up a day later and say, hey, we're going to reopen the store. You'll always see a little flurry of activity, especially if you tie that to an email or a social media campaign. Optimizing the user experience for repeat purchases. You got to make it easy for folks to reorder. One-click reorder. Go into their portal, click, put in the new quantities, push button, done. We talked a little bit about the portal and automated communications. Whatever platform you're using should have the ability to send email confirmations to people. Should have, fundraising goals that are projected. You can set up with the user account InkSoft for the person that's responsible to get a report on a cadence of all the activity that's happened within their store. What's really fun is loyalty and incentives. You can do repeat buyer discounts. You can drop a coupon, send out an email, say, hey, here's a coupon for 10% off on your next order. That's something that can be easily configured in InkSoft. Consistent experience, keep design, pricing, and product selection reliable to build long-term trust. Once you get something that's working, stick to it. I know a lot of times people just, they always just want to try things that are new, which is fine. But if you're going to try something that's new and you already have something that's working real well, you have to be really careful because you have a proven success template. Now you're kind of tweaking it. Sometimes that doesn't always work out into your favor. Let's dive into a store. I am on my East Eagles booster store, and this is a store that I love to use because it is like a test kitchen. It's got all the kind of bells and whistles in InkSoft. And I want to point a couple things out. You're not going to do a store like this in BigCommerce. You're not going to do a store like this in Shopify. They're not designed to work the same way, where an InkSoft store has that kind of that secret weapon, so to speak, and that's the online designer. And so in this store, you'll notice if I go over here to customize, and we can customize this banner or this grad sign, but if I go over here and click on customize, and let's say I pick that Ash t-shirt and I want to add art, in this store, I actually have specific designs built for that particular organization. You can put seniors in there. They can get a quote. They can check out. So this is that interactivity. So a lot of times people think of the InkSoft Designer as this thing that you're going to use to be the next Custom Ink. You're probably not spending the same amount of money on advertising that Custom Ink is spending. But that's not really where you're going to see your action from the designer. Where you're going to see your action from the designer is doing these name drops like this. And we can take this a step even further, because as we scroll down here, here's our fundraising badge right there. This right here, I took this from another website. I saw this. I thought it looked really good. I screen captured it. I took it into ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, can you copy this and convert it into an HTML code for me? Can you rewrite the copy so in my voice so it doesn't look like I took this from somebody else? And once I had that HTML code, we can just go into InkSoft in a content block and then just paste it in there and it creates this. And then I imported this photo that I created and created a nice little block here. And then I even told it to create a button. Where's this button go? Probably like all products. Yeah. Created this little button to go to all products. And the reason I did that is it's just easier for me to tell ChatGPT to create it than for me to try to create button, this color blue, have it say load more, go to this URL and around the corners. This right here is going to give you some examples of some other things you can do with the InkSoft Designer that, whether you're an existing InkSoft owner or if you're looking at other platforms, this is literally one of the coolest things you can do with InkSoft, because I can click into this existing design right here, and then it just shows up as a name drop. And if you think about this, if I'm dealing with this school group here, I don't want to have to do a separate graphic for every team, every sport, every color. I don't want to create all those mock-ups. It'd be a huge amount of work. So it's just a lot better that they can just go over here and say volleyball, and they can see it themselves. You can set up a minimum order quantity. You click to the next page and it says, hey, you got to order 36 or 24. You can do that. And what I would recommend doing in this context of what I just did right here is have a fixed price, that those t-shirts match up with the retail price that you have in your store for just pre-printed goods. So a fixed price of $30 if your pre-printed shirts are $30. I might charge a little bit of a premium for this since you are doing that customization. Now you could also put price breaks in there too, where they got to 100 units, they got a slight discount. So this is kind of a fun thing to do, but we've taken that same concept and we've taken it even further, because now we've added the ability to customize the back of it, a jersey or a t-shirt. If they want to come in here and put their number in here. And you notice I've limited the color palette here to colors for the school. You don't have to do that, but in this particular instance, I did that. Scrolling right down the line, name droppable embroidery patch. So how did I do this? I used my vector to stitch digitizing software, which is a program that I really enjoy using. Used it for over 20 years, called Drawings is the name of the software. And I took the vector art, dropped it in there, converted it to embroidery. And this part right here is not embroidery. This part right here is this name droppable text. So I can go in here and do this, but what I did is I put a little disclaimer in it that says when they go to check out, that says, hey, just bear in mind your final production is going to be embroidery. And so if you read the print right here, it says, click on cap to customize the lettering on the finished cap will be embroidery. Did a couple different patches in here. This is a fun one. These are all just templates from Graphics Flow. And I imported them into InkSoft in the designer. I name dropped them. I saved them as a stock template. And so I have a little link here. I'm basically linking to this page right here. I just grabbed that sharing link. And so what we're doing is if you come back here, is what I'm doing is I'm linking this photo of the product to that sharing link. That's all I'm doing. Now, bear in mind, when you do that, you got to create the graphic in the store you're linking to. So I just created this whole mock-up and graphic in this particular store. And then that link will go to this store. So you don't want to do it in another store and then link to a different store, because they'll be checking out of a different store. So I'm linking to this hat with this graphic that was saved in the designer in this store right here. Couple fun other things that we did in here is, we have a name drop here for a grad sign. These are the possibilities of the kinds of things that you can do with the store. And I've even taken this and I've done senior shirts in here, and I even did name droppable laser engraved drinkware. And then a couple other fun things in the store. This store has a decal ordering page. So if they want to go over here and name drop and order decals, they can do that as well. We're just using the InkSoft designer. How did we get to this point? How did we create this cool store like this? Every software platform has its own store creation process. I've used lots of different platforms. Probably the one I'm most familiar with is Shopify. Shopify is an excellent company. Shopify is an excellent platform, but Shopify is not going to be an easy thing for you to learn how to use. It's a fairly complex, very super powerful product. Yes, they have templates, but it wasn't built to deploy 1,400 InkSoft stores. We work with B Graphics. They have 1,400 InkSoft stores. They wouldn't have been even remotely practical or possible to build out 1,400 Shopify stores. But using your InkSoft, it's quite easy to do that because you have 3 really good options for creating stores. And I'm going to create a store real quick, and we're going to kind of walk you through it. So I'm going to go over here to stores within InkSoft. And here's all the stores that I've got rolling right now. And what I've done is I've set up little templates for store types that I frequently use. So I started with my own basic store template. And then right here, so there's that store template. And then I customized it so it was the school template with the products and all the things that I like. And then I saved it. And I don't even use the store. It's not even a deploy store. It's just a launch pad for new stores is all it is. So when I go into my InkSoft and I want to create a store, I'm just going to click on store, and I'm going to be presented with 3 options. Option 1 is get started, which is going through this little kind of wizard and filling out the little stores and putting the URL in here. And that's how you'd create a store from scratch. But I don't really feel like you need to ever do that anymore. Most people are going to create a store from a store template. So they would go over here and maybe they like this layout. They click on it. They want to get a little preview of what it's going to look like. They're like, that looks great. All I got to do is swap out the logo and I'm good to go. I'm a big fan of cloning stores and creating store templates that are personalized to me. If I go over here and I want to take one of those quick store templates and I want to localize that for a new kind of a situation, and I want to take this store template right here, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone it. So I'm going to give it a new name, and we'll call it Central Fall Boosters Store. This URL is going to be an InkSoft URL, but with InkSoft, I can take this URL and I can send it to any URL I want. So for instance, if they have the domain centralboosters.org or edu/merch, I can land this on the /merch page and they'll never see the InkSoft in here. So let's go ahead and put some underscores in here. And this is going to be my store. The other thing I'm going to do is, you see where it says clone store right here? There's a little button right here that I'm going to click on. And that little button is include products to store. Why would I want to do that? Here, I'll show you why. Because the reason I want to do that is I've pre-curated a group of artwork and pre-curated a group of products that's going to be in every one of my school stores. So I've saved very specific artwork and very specific products in this school store. So those products will come over every time I clone it. And so what I'm going to do right now is just going to do a big old art swap, because we're going to take this and replace it with another embroidery file. And let's go to my store files, and we'll go to Central Booster Store Files, and we'll go to DST, and we'll just pick this one. And because InkSoft can process graphics, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a color here, and it's going to be super white. Actually, let's not do super white. Let's do it red in here. And I'm just using Madeira thread, so we'll use that tomato red. Looks good. And then over here, we'll do the white. Looks good. Hit done. And then hit upload. So every product that has that left chest embroidery, which is probably polo shirts and hats, if I recall, is now going to have the new logo. I don't have to go and change them individually. And then we're going to come over here, and we're going to do the same thing over here. We're going to go to replace art, and I'm going to do a print file, in this case a PDF. And part of the reason I love doing a PDF here is it will come in with all the vectors, so I can do color changes, because we can use the color styles feature to swap out the colors, because it's going to parse out the colors in the PDF, and then I can go and change the colors using colorways. So I can change the colors using the colorways feature. So let's go to the store. Every one of your InkSoft stores is going to operate as its own business. And so if I go over to this store and I say store admin, and I go to store settings, and I go down here and go to store branding, I can replace this logo, and we'll just put in the correct logo here. And we're going to use that banner. We're going to replace this logo with the cougar. This is how fast it is to update stores. We're going to replace that banner right there with this banner right here. And then we'd want to go in and update the contact person or any other settings that we want to have, or email notifications and all of that. But what's going to happen now is if I go over to the style editor, we can just swap out the banner, and we've got this thing completely localized. So I'm just going to say edit right here. And what I'm doing is I'm editing components within the store. And so these are nothing more than store components. I can add them, I can delete them, I can edit them. One thing that I want to definitely do here is on this component right here, I want to change that to red. It's pulling the red from the logo, so it matches. Let's see here, looking good. Over here, I want to use a background color. I think I just want to use white. Let's manage these. And let's add this one right there and get rid of that one. Hit done. So let's manage this product, and let's get rid of that and add the hat. And then let's move that up. There, hit done. And let's drop out that background and make that white. There we go. If I want to add additional components, now let's say I want to edit the fundraising banner, we can do that, because here's all of our goal settings. What I want to do is just show you how I created this. So I'm going to delete it, and then we're going to add a store component, and that's going to be the fundraiser component. And then we're going to go in here and change that to, I think we should make it red. So let's make that red. Yeah, it looks good. And let's go down here and change the goal setting. We'll just do a fixed financial goal. So we'll do $5,000 is what our target is. And then payout metric, we'll just do per unit. So we're going to say, hey, we're going to give you $5 a unit and we'll just keep it open-ended. So it'll go until I decide I want to end it. $5 from each transaction goes to the Central High Travel Fund. There we go. And put an end date in there, and we're going to end this on October 1st at midnight. And see, now it's reset that counter. And we haven't raised any money yet. But that's how components work. And if I want to take this component and move it up in the order, it's all drag and drop. So all I have to do is just go over here and just drag and drop it over here. And so once I get that all set up, we'll just hit save and publish. And then we're going to do some replacing of some products in here. So let's go create a graphic real quick. So I'm going to go over here, and I am in graphics flow. And so it looks like we had our new September art drop here in graphics flow. And we're going to take one of these graphics, and we are going to update it for Central. So I kind of like this soccer graphic over here. So let's go ahead and click on it. And let's go over here and hit customize. We'll just say Central right here, and then we'll say Cougars in that soccer font. Hit enter. And let's change those colors. So we're going to use their colors. We're going to use that pop and bright red that they use. And we could set up our own Pantones if we wanted to. And red's a little too much. Let's see here. We'll use this red. Actually, the navy works good. I don't have to do anything there. And then I'm just going to save this into my Central folder. Central Cougars, and we'll call it Central Soccer 01. And then if I want to bounce this over to the customer as an approval, I would just say add to art approval and just create a new approval. There we go. And then all I have to do is send them the little link for their art approval right here. And then I would just say invite collaborators, put their email in. I determine if they can view, comment, or comment and approve. They get this, they approve it, they sign off on it, everybody's good, and then I just populate this in their store. So let's do that. So we're going to download this as a PDF. I'll just put it in my downloads folder now. Let's go back to our store, and we're going to save that, and we're going to come back here, and we're going to go to Store Admin, and we're going to upload that logo. So upload art. And it's in my downloads folder right there. So there it is. And now we're going to go over here to products. And we're going to add a product, and it'll be a new product. And we're just going to do a good old basic tee right here. And we can do heather, or we can do whatever color we want. We'll just do white. So we'll do heather and white. And we'll add the graphic to that. Create product. Give it a price. We'll go $30. And then we'll upcharge for the big ones. So over here, we'll do 35 for the doubles and the triples. And 40 for the other one. And hit done. Hit finish. And then all I got to do is add it to the store. So I'm just going to go back here to Style Editor. And let's replace this. So manage products. Get rid of that one. Add it there. Hit done, save and publish. That's how easy it is. And then rinse and repeat, because I can clone this now, because I have this as like my little curated store. Super easy for me to clone this and maybe put it to sleep until next fall and relaunch it. But that's how easy it is to create stores. Now, one thing I want to do here, I have a background color. See that little yellow that's coming through here? We want to turn that off so it doesn't have any background color. But pretty nice looking store here. And that's how easy it is to create a store. So let's kind of go back and recap a little bit and talk a little bit about some best practices. We talked about mobile friendly being important. We talked about keeping your store layout very simple, easy to navigate. We talked about keeping your product mix concise. We talked about setting up your revenue share model. I'm a big fan of either flat rate or percentage of gross, either one. Getting customers to promote it. I think that's probably the biggest thing. That's why we're doing a separate class on digital marketing to give you guys the tools to kind of walk your customers through the promotion process so you have good, successful stores. And then we showed you how to create a graphic using Graphics Flow. I don't think it's possible in today's day and age to have a decorated apparel business without having the ability to produce stores for your customers. Because eventually what's going to happen, somebody else is going to do that for them. and then you're just going to have one less customer. So you should be the leader. And the thing that's cool about stores is they pay for themselves, regardless of what platform you're utilizing. Obviously, I feel very strongly that InkSoft is the best solution in the marketplace, but it doesn't matter what platform you're using. If you correctly deploy stores and you have good graphics, you got good product mix, you make it easy for your customers to buy from you. Stores, they're a revenue generator. So I think a lot of times when people kind of get hung up on making the investment in e-commerce technology, it pays for itself. It's the best deal out there. I just want to encourage you guys to get started. It doesn't have to be perfect the first time. Get in there and play. Create just a fun little store. It's not going anywhere. Create something for your family or for friends or your favorite team, just to get experience and to roll your sleeves up. Try things. You just have to get in there and play. And that's always my best advice for new InkSoft users. Not going to hurt anything. You don't even have to activate payments within the store. Just get in the store, try a few things. Work with the InkSoft designer. If you have graphics flow, you can configure your graphics flow art portal right into your store if you want. In that East Eagle store, I've got the art portal for graphics flow built right into there. Play around with those kind of things right here. View designs. There's the graphics flow art portal built into an InkSoft store. Thank you so much for joining me on InkSoft Academy. And then we will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.